Hi, everyone. My name is AJ Bullens, and today we ran a webinar on how to effectively lead innovation. Unfortunately, the recording didn't work out well, so this is round two, and hopefully I could take you through the main points of what I introduced and the discussions that we had in that webinar. So, just a quick introduction. This is brought to you by Commercial Excellence Partners. I'm one of the founding and managing partners of the group. We have colleagues and peers that are based in Singapore, in the United Arab Emirates, in the UK, and in America. So we cover topics all around customer centricity. That's the heart of what we do. When we think about innovation, it's about customer centric innovation. When it's about strategy, it's about customer centric strategy. And so these are all the different kind of areas. This is like our wheel of what we cover when it comes to commercial excellence. And again, at the heart of what we do, it's all about customer centricity. At the bottom of the screen, you can see our august network of partners that we work with in CEP. And today I'm going to talk to you about the innovation wheel or the innovation segment of our offerings. So in the past, we've covered webinars on many, many different topics. We do this on a monthly basis. And if you would like to go back and see any of the webinars that we've conducted in the past, you're more than welcome to follow our YouTube channel, and everything is listed there. Right. So today's topic is on how to effectively lead innovation, and it's a tough one. We asked participants in the webinar, what role did you play in leading innovation? Is it either as the top leader driving it on an organization level? Are you focusing in the middle, like you're in middle management, driving innovation in your department or your function? Or was it that you had another perspective that you brought? And overwhelmingly, it was senior leaders who were joining this webinar. And so we took that lens to the webinar as we started putting everything in context. So where does this start off from my perspective, dealing with so many different companies and organizations, public sector, private sector organizations? When we lead innovation, we really need to start first by aligning our innovation strategy with our organizational strategy. And what I'm seeing in a lot of organizations is that people get confused in the middle. And if they're confused in the middle, they're confused on the front line of where should we be innovating, in my respective role, whatever I do in the organization. But we hear a lot about innovation, and then sometimes people are lost. And what does this mean? So what's very important is for leaders to make it clear where to play and how to play in terms of markets, and where to play and how to play when it comes to innovation. So let's just kind of review here on a high level a strategy house. We all know that this is a conventional framework for strategy. We have a mission and vision at the top, which serves as our guiding aspiration for the organization. We have several key pillars, which are areas of focus that we want the organizations to be really committed to and keep their focus on. And then we have underlying this, we have our core values as an organization, and enablers. Enablers are things like, talent development, innovation, sustainability. We need to have all of these, let's say, assets and muscles to add value when we're trying to strive towards progress in each of the strategic pillars. So that's what a strategy house looks like. But we have to think, well, how can we make progress in some of these strategic pillars? So I'm going to take you through an example here. I'm going to imagine that we're a hotel group. We're the Marriott group. And as the Marriott group, we may have one strategic pillar, which is focusing on net zero carbon emissions. This is something that we really want to work towards. So what are the different initiatives that we can have in place that contribute to this goal? Well, there's going to be a lot of strategic projects we can do. So things like we can install solar panels and replace, fossil fuel consumption with cleaner renewable energy. We could divest high carbon assets that we might have. We could potentially acquire low or no carbon businesses or assets as well. So when we think about these strategic projects, it's not really innovation. It might be doing something new, but in this situation, we mostly know what the outcome is going to be. It's not that much of a placing a bet. It's not about taking a risk, really. We need to make an investment. We need to manage it, but we just kind of do it and get it improved, and then we benefit from the results. And these things, we have a very foreseeable outcome. Now, when it comes to innovation, this is where things are a little bit more vague. In these areas, we're trying to create new value for customers and potentially for ourselves, but we're really taking a risk in how we do that. It's not so clear cut like it is with strategic projects. So things like how can we sustainably manage waste on an island? This might be something that the Marriott Group might be thinking about on some of their island resorts. How to promote eco-friendly guest behavior. Uh, that's something that we're going to have to tinker with and experiment with. How can we design sustainable architecture of our properties? This is also something that will take some experimentation. And we need to learn and adapt and get better as we explore and find what works and doesn't work. That's really what innovation is about. It's very much about having a hypothesis of how we can solve a problem. It's experimenting with different ways of trying to solve that problem, seeing what works, and being agile in the process. So again, if we come back to our strategic pillar, it might be around net zero carbon emissions, like in this example for Marriott. There are strategic projects we can do. There are innovation projects we can do. And this is how they're a little bit different between one and the other. Now, when we look at the strategy development process in an organization, we're always thinking about risk. So some projects are going to be riskier than others. And typically, strategic projects, while they might be bold, quite often they're not as risky, typically. Yeah. And so if this core here is really around, let's say, improving the core business, we're going to have a lot of strategic projects that we can do, but we might have some innovation projects as well. The second pillar here, it looks like we're going a little bit riskier with some of the projects. And in this third pillar, it might be very aspirational, a real stretch target for the organization. And a lot of innovation is required in that newer space for us. The same concept applies to the enablers. We need to have strategic projects that help us build up capabilities in our enablers, but also we need to innovate and take some chances and place some bets as well. So when it comes to the innovation angle of strategy, I don't want to focus on the strategic projects. You know about that. But when it comes to the innovation aspect within these strategic pillars, each leader or sponsor of those strategic pillars needs to be very clear on what's the landing zone for innovation. And so they start off with saying, well, this is the innovation theme in this pillar. It aligns with our strategy and vision for the organization, and it serves as a direction. However, there are kind of guardrails that help us define the landing zone, the sandbox, if you will, for where we want innovation to land as a leadership team. So leaders need to give clarity on what this sandbox looks like. Is it very constrained where we have many different guardrails and boundaries, or is it a little bit too broad where we don't have any guidance on what a landing zone looks like? The best answer is that we have something in the middle. So here's an example. We might say that the Marriott Group might say, we're only looking at innovation projects that have a potential ROI of $10 million or plus. So we have to believe it's a sizable opportunity worthy of our attention. Also, we might say that we're looking on innovation projects where we can get results within 2 years. We're not looking at a 5 to 10 year horizon. We're looking at, let's say, a 2 to 3 year horizon. Anything that falls within this range is something that we would be interested in and want to hear ideas about. And so once we're aligned as management of what that landing zone looks like for us and what we're comfortable with, we communicate this guidance to the organization. And we tell everybody, hey, we're welcoming your ideas. We want you to go in this direction. But as you go in this direction, please keep in mind, these are things that we're going to be looking at assessing to see which projects we fund. So we want projects with potential 110 million potential ROI, and we want projects that we can get results from within 2 years. Now the organization knows, and you start getting lots of ideas coming in. Some of these ideas are going to be falling outside of these guardrails. And those are ones that we potentially, disregard and say, well, we've been clear on what we're focusing on, and let's look at, assess, and prioritize the different innovation concepts that are falling within our landing zone. From there, we're able to prioritize, we place bets, and the name of the game is placing small bets first, seeing if we're getting some initial momentum and evidence that we're going in the right way. And with evidence, that fuels more funding. The evidence is positive. We can give that initial project that we gave $10,000, we can now give it $50,000 or $100,000. And again, we would want to have clear criteria for what would we like to see if we spent 50,000 or $100,000. What evidence would we see that we're on the right track towards a great solution? Now, at the same time, while this is a guidance of how leaders need to think, we also need to be very aware of what's driving these ideas that are not falling within our strategy. If these are a lot of ideas that are customer centric and customers are telling us that, there's a bunch of things we would love you to do, it aligns with your innovation theme, but it might be a little bit outside of your guardrails. What do? We might think as a leadership team that our guardrails are too stringent, or maybe our strategic pillar is too internally focused and it's not open enough to the outside. Maybe we want to change some of these criteria to, we want to focus on projects with potential 10 million ROI. At the same time, we want to look at projects that customers would love, and we have strong validation of customer desirability. Okay, that might change the guardrails a little bit and might open up to more of these ideas on the outside. So while we want to have structure and guidance and a framework for giving guidance to the organization on where we want to play and how we want to play in terms of innovation, we also need to check once in a while, what are the outliers, and should we adapt our strategy and open it up a little bit to give life or potential to some of these projects. That's a management decision to make. Now, where to innovate? Here's a helpful framework that leaders can use to kind of think and communicate to the organization the different areas where we innovate as a group. So this is the Ansoff matrix, and the Ansoff matrix is a very simple 2x2 matrix where on the bottom axis here we have the perspective of, are we innovating to create to leverage existing products, or are we creating new products? And this axis over here is, are we focusing on existing markets and customers, or are we looking at new customers and new markets? And so this bottom left-hand quadrant here is very much about the core. And we should be innovating here in any business. We want to make sure that we have a strong core, a core business that is really scaling and is as efficient as possible and is producing the cash flows that we need to fund more aspirational investments that are in the other quadrants. Now, if we look to the other quadrants, we could start up on the top here where we could look at how do we bring our existing products to new markets? And this is very much about commercial innovation. It's incremental, so it's building on our existing products. We're just trying to find new novel ways to bring it to new customers and new markets. Another dimension could be, how do we leverage the unmet needs that customers might have and develop new products and create even more value for customers? And this quadrant is very much driven by product development. Finally, a more radical section for innovation is up here, which is the diversification quadrant. Here, this is usually how can we leverage, radical new technologies or radical business models that really change the game for how business is done and conducted in our sector. So I'm going to give you a quick example of what this could look like for a telco. And a telco would be probably doing a little bit of everything. And the name of the game is we want to, diversify our bets when it comes to innovation. Invest heavily in the core. And for a telco, it could look like offering discounted plans or bundles to existing customers to increase their usage of current services. Very, very much focused on the core. But if we go up to new markets, we might say, well, how can we, create specialized packages targeting specific new demographic groups, such as students or seniors or maybe gamers or digital nomads? How can we create a purpose-built bundles for specific markets that we don't really engage with well today? If we look down over here, how can we add more value for our existing customers? Maybe we can add new technology such as communication tools like 5G or satellite internet services that really help us stay competitive in the market. So these are all things that a telco would do. Now, the top right hand here, this gets really, really aspirational. Maybe we want to create or invest in a venture capital fund or get into digital banking, so which is something that's literally something completely new for us. So the name of the game for an organization is to spread your bets. If you're putting all of your eggs inside the bottom left-hand quadrant, that is really over-investing in today. And what we're seeing is that a lot of well-established organizations are over investing in what they're already good at today and under investing where they need to be strong at for tomorrow's business. So if you have too many eggs in the bottom left-hand quadrant, you could be lining yourself up for the Kodak moment, where you're not investing enough in new technologies and new business models and reaching out to new markets. And so if things really change in the market and your customers really look for new solutions to solve their problems, you're really stuck because you're a one-trick pony. So the name of the game is spread your bets. But how do you do this? How do you really manage innovation in these different quadrants? And who should do that? And that's another thing that leaders need to be aware of. We can't get innovation does not mean the same thing to everybody. So what we can look at here is on this bottom left-hand triangle here, this is really innovation close to the core. And it's about existing customers, about existing products and services. And who's best fit to understand that space and drive innovation in that space? It's the people that are working in that space and managing that space. We want to get them really driving this. They know how to do things better, faster, cheaper. We can get inspiration from the outside, but it's, let's say, 80% driven by existing business owners and management. 20% might be coming from ideas coming from the outside or from the innovation teams. Now, if we go to the top right here, this is very, very aspirational. This is the radical innovation space within the Ansoff matrix. And that in that space, we typically don't want to have people working in the core focusing too much in these areas. Why? Because it's completely new skill sets and mindsets and networks and capabilities. And we also don't want to get people in the core distracted from managing the core. The core needs to make money. And so let them focus on incremental innovation and optimize and exploit the existing business. But when it comes to exploring new areas, we want to get, special teams and special roles in the organization, like your strategy teams, your innovation teams, to be really exploring these spaces. And so typically they're driving results a little bit more, moving away from incremental to a little bit more outside of the box. And the most aspirational, we might need to be thinking about working with startups, small fish that are very focused in niche areas and learn from them. Maybe investing in venture capital to try to get some skin in the game, but not really risk the home ship in the process. And we can learn a lot by playing with others. It's about open innovation. It's about collaboration. And quite often, it's about radical new technologies and about radical new business models. So the message here is there's different groups, project teams that should be driving innovation in these different spaces. Let the core focus on the core, support them a little bit with your innovation teams. Let your innovation teams not focus only on the core. Let them be a little bit more aspirational on developing new markets and products. And when it comes to the radical, this is when you're going into hardcore R&D. The teams that are focusing on pushing the boundaries of science and technology, they're focusing not on commercialization, not on products, but advancing technology. And you want to be able to place a bit of a bet there as well. Now, we're also experimenting at CEP with assessments. And so we have one here, and we invite you to join this as well. You can scan this QR code and answer the 7 questions in our innovation maturity assessment. It's only seven questions. It's meant to be very, very high level, but we're trying to get people to give us some input so we can collect that data and really see what this looks like and look at things and benchmark across sectors and sizes of companies as well. You'll hear more about this in the weeks to come. All right. So there were several people left questions or comments when we asked them, what are your challenges around innovation? Comment here, people, consistency, and the next best shiny thing seems to be a challenge. The next one over here, in pharma industry, there is product innovation and development, but business model or more or less the same for 50 years. So we're seeing this in a lot of traditional industries where there's always product innovations, process innovations, but the business model stays the same. And this is a great opportunity for business model innovation to be a real radical disruptor in a sector. We've seen many examples of that happening. So we know how Amazon has challenged commerce. We see Spotify has challenged the music industry. Uber has challenged the taxi industries and reinvented the way that we commute. And so, but there's many other examples of this. And so, business model innovation is one of the most effective ways of disrupting an industry. It's very rarely happening just through process improvements and product innovation. It's normally disruptive innovations normally coming from radical new business models or the application of radical new technologies. Umang has mentioned here, how do you design innovation teams and how do you broad base their innovations across the organization? Any best practices? Well, I think innovation teams should serve as a shared resource for the organizations. They should support leaders that are driving today's day-to-day business to come up with novel new ways of reaching new customers and markets, creating new products and services, and experimenting with new business models and partnerships. And that way, the leaders of core businesses can focus on the core business. Now, yes, we need them to participate in innovating, but their innovation should be much more focused on the core business, where the innovation teams, they might not have hard targets relating to the commercialization of existing markets and business models and products. They should have incentives around creating the future. And so that gives a balance between focusing on today, but also exploring tomorrow. And so that could be a way that innovation teams can be set up to broadly support improvements across the organization, both within strategic pillars and core business, but also within the enablers as well. Now, ideally, they're in a situation that they're not struggling to find projects to do. Actually, there should be too many projects and not enough funds and resources available. That way, we have enough volume, a quantity of innovative ideas to look at. And hopefully, we can then go through a selection process to prioritize and fund the ideas that we think have the most potential to make an impact. Samir made a point here. Approach to ROI is a main challenge to those driving innovation. Yeah, it's unknown. It's a risk. Innovation in its essence is not just doing something better, because we could do strategic projects for that, right? If I want to be able to clean my floor better, I can buy a vacuum cleaner, and a vacuum is going to be, more effective than, let's say, a broom. Is that really innovation? No, not really. I mean, it's using tools and methods to do something better, but it's not really innovation. It's applying innovations to my needs. Innovation is when I don't know really the answer to it. So how can I do better than a vacuum cleaner? I now don't know the answer to that. And I might have hypotheses on what this could look like, but I need to experiment. I need to try different ways of finding a better solution that's better than vacuum cleaners. And so what's going to be the ROI of that? I don't even really know at this point. I just know that I'm making vacuum cleaners, let's say today, and I'm either going to be disrupted by some new technology or somebody else, or I want to, try to explore new technologies and see, can I make a whole new product that will disrupt my existing portfolio, or do I use it as like let's say a lighthouse or concept product, which I can incorporate some of those features and benefits and find ways through cost reductions to apply some of those concepts into my core products to have an incremental improvement. There's different ways that we can look at that. But when it comes to ROI, of course, is very, very important. And in the beginning, I think teams need to be good at assessing, do we smell or sniff that there might be some economic opportunity to solve this problem? And that's the first sense that we should be able to have. We don't want to be focusing and wasting energy on small potatoes. We want to be focusing on bigger, bolder, more aspirational opportunities where we have a chance to make some good money. Right, let's come down to another point here. David, I think frugality drives innovation just like other constraints do. One of the only ways to get out of a tight box is to invent your way out. This is a quote from Jeff Bezos. And I agree. I think one of the things is if you're leading innovation and innovation teams and your teams are coming with solutions too easily, I would put the pressure on. I would say, hey, listen, you have one solution. I don't know if it's a good one until I see another two. I'm going to give you a couple of weeks to work on this. Let's reconvene and let's see what your other ideas are, and then we'll prioritize and make decisions on how to move forward. So sometimes you want to be able to um, put pressure on the teams. It could be through frugality and saying, giving a limited budget, giving a limited amount of time, a limited amount of resources, and quite often see what teams can do with that. If you make it too easy for them, they will always develop the most complicated solution, the Rolls-Royce version, which you might not need. Maybe a Honda Civic solution will do the job. So it's a point well taken. HB Ui was making a point here. What do customers want? One, high quality. Two, half the price. Three, immediate delivery. Four, 60-day credit. Can design thinking satisfy customer wants? Um, yeah, design thinking is a great methodology for innovation. And it can really help us to really understand through the empathy stage what the customer's pain points are, what their experiences are like, and how can we improve upon that. So yeah, absolutely, it can help uncover customers' wants and needs. What we still need to assess is willingness to pay. So design thinking is a very good tool of uncovering what customers want and what good looks like. It doesn't really help us to determine whether they're willing to pay for it. So that's something we really need to dig into earlier in the conversation when we're understanding customers' needs and personas, and also when we're in the prototyping and testing stage to look at the lens of willingness to pay. And if we bring that into the design thinking process, then I think it becomes a lot more pragmatic from a commercial point of view. All right, Dave made a comment here. Innovation is sometimes a challenge. Many organizations don't want change, especially if things are going well. Why change if it's not broken? Absolutely. But who determines if it's broken? It's normally going to be the customers. And so the customers quite often would, if we're listening to them, they'll let us know what's working well and what they love, and they'll let us know what they're not happy with. They could do it in a structured, confidential way through focus groups or surveys, or they could do it very loudly in a Google review, right? So what we want to be good at in organizations is listening to the market, listening to both our existing customers, but also we want to be going to new potential customers and saying, we have a hypothesis that we can create incredible value for new segments of customers. We feel that our existing products and services may not be optimized, or business model may not be optimized to create the value that they're looking for. However, let's understand what those needs are, and let's then start to innovate and start experimenting to see what a great solution would look like. Now, even if we can't create a great solution, maybe it's not profitable, maybe it's not worth looking into. But that is a sound way of looking at innovation, is from the customer's lens. All right, if we come over here, I'm going to zoom into another point here. Innovation is too much around products and not around business models and processes. Absolutely. It's not bad to invest in products and around processes, but quite often it's still very much about the core. It's very incremental. And should companies spend most of their money in optimizing today? Yeah, they probably should, unless you're in a completely dying industry. Then you might really need to go into the other quadrants. But most organizations should be focusing mostly there. However, you don't want to put all your eggs in that basket either. You want to invest some money into business models as well. How do you design innovation teams, and how do you broad base your innovations across the organization? I think I think this has come up already. We've already answered this one. From TC Lee, and from Shenzhen, was asking or saying, in organization, bottom up approach is hard for innovation. Instead, top down approach is one of the best approaches for promoting innovation. You don't need to prove ROI, or maybe conduct a risk assessment. All right, this is a good question, but there's pros and cons to this. So sometimes you might have a leader that is so aspirational around innovation, and they're really willing to push the organization and not compromise. So we've had examples of this. Like example, Steve Jobs was very good at not compromising, and he was always looking at things from the customer's lens, not from the technology lens. He would start with the customer experience he wanted to have, and he would push his technology teams and say, you're not there yet. The technology might be there, but the experience is not. And so he was not satisfied. Daniel Ek from Spotify had the same thing. The Spotify needed to be fast enough, or it wasn't going to work, and he pushed the teams very, very, very hard. So sometimes it's a good thing. However, there's a lot of cases where top management, usually the CEO or the owner of a business, really just has a belief that some product or service is going to be absolutely amazing, and they will rather invest in their own vision for the product or service rather than go through the disciplined approach of innovation, which is validating that need with customers, getting their input, identifying their jobs to do, and then working towards a solution that fits into the problem. Quite often, if we don't do it that way, it's very risky. Most products fail. We well know that. But we've seen examples of that from many industries where the top CEO took their kind of white elephant project, supported it for a little bit too long, and sometimes it's risky. It can sink some businesses sometimes. So it really depends. But I think what's important is to have some, let's say, scrutiny behind investments in innovation. Can we answer the basics like who's a customer? What are their needs? Is it a substantial market worth going for? If we can't answer yes, yes, yes to these three, then don't waste your time looking into a problem, or revisit this in a year or two to see if things have changed. All right, another point here, cost of investing in innovation versus outcome. I value and impact on customers. Yeah, how do we balance this? This is always a challenge, but the answer is it's better to do it incrementally. Customers don't really understand the and know best the solution until they kind of see it. But they know their problems very, very well, and they can evaluate the value of your solution versus the value of existing solutions. So as you start to prototype and test with them, and as they start to see the impact of value that you create for them, that starts to give us more confidence that it's worth pursuing and investing more money and bringing our prototypes towards an MVP and something that we might ultimately want to launch. Umang was mentioning picking up on the Marriott example. What are other examples of sustainability innovation that you are seeing? I want to be clear. I'm definitely not a sustainability expert, so I can't really comment too much on that particular vertical. Umang, you probably know this a lot better than I do, so I think that would have been a great opportunity for you to have shared your experience in that space. But one thing I can say with confidence is that a lot of organizations, while they're driven by sustainability, and it is a set target and focus for organizations, um, and a commitment is there towards it. Sometimes there's a lot of the metrics are not in place, so people don't even know how they will measure improvement and progress towards sustainability. And so, if you don't have the numbers in place and a metric system to assess your progress against, it's going to be difficult. It's like some wise man said, I forget who it was, if you can't measure it, you can't improve it. I think that was Drucker actually who said that. So this is a problem that a lot of organizations have. And so we need to learn from best practices on who's doing a good job of measuring impact in terms of sustainability. TC says, ironically, many organizations don't want to change, especially if things getting worse due to budget limitation. Yeah. So when times are tough and you're in survival mode, is it a good time to invest? And that's a real challenge. And yeah, so typically innovation gets put on the back burner, and that honestly is pragmatic. That makes sense. I mean, you need your core business to survive and to make money that you can reinvest into innovation. But if your main ship is sinking, you want to fix that ship. You don't want to spend time trying to develop the next ship. And I mean, this is in general cases. Of course, there's always exception to the rules, but it's very, very important that if your business is in a very tight situation, you need to first focus on the viability of your existing business and business model. Maybe you could start experimenting a little bit more commercially. Don't invest in new products, but try to have new novel ways of engaging with customers and customer experiences rather than creating new products and business models, which would take a little bit longer and cost more money to do. All right. Well, listen, that covers a lot of the questions that were asked in our session today. I hope that that was helpful, and I really enjoyed today's conversation. I hope that we have more sessions ahead on the innovation topic. that's all for me today, everyone. Thanks. And if you have any follow-up questions, put it into the post and tag me, and I'll be happy to engage with you there on LinkedIn. Cheers, everyone. Take care.